All right. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We have David Bentz with us from formerly with the U.S. Secret Service, and myself, Daniel Floyd, Chief Information Security Officer here at BlackCloak. And today we're going to be covering modern cybersecurity challenges with a focus on financial institutions and financial backgrounds and some risks and other challenging landscapes that the financial institutions face in today's cybersecurity threat landscape. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce David and kick it over to David for a brief intro, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks, David.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to spending a little time with your team. And just a quick intro on me. Obviously, it says on LinkedIn, and you put it here. I first of all have to say, you stated I'm a veteran and expert in Secret Service. I hate that term, actually. I'm not an expert. I feel like I am a veteran. I'm pretty seasoned in this world, the exposure of this. But anyway, to back up, I spent 22 years in the Secret Service. My last 10 years were really primarily in this world of cybersecurity. We started a task force here in Dallas, of which I was the first supervisor of that task force, and really built it up to over 400 members, just because there was a lot of interest in sharing information between the government and private industry. It's very well received. I think that's really the platform of the government and working together in cybersecurity moving forward, which is why I'm here. I retired 10 years ago, actually 11 years ago. I worked in private industry for 10 years as a technology director for a large multi-billion-dollar organization. And only in the last year, I started my own consulting business. So that's me.
Got it. Very interesting. And we were chatting before, and one of the things that not everybody will know, some of the more financial focused individuals on this call will, but the history of the Secret Service, a lot of people associate Secret Service with the presidential protection details and more, bodyguard type security services and things of that nature. But it was interesting to hear your take and a little bit of history on the original remit of the Secret Service.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel, for bringing that up, because I always ask when I'm doing public presentations who actually knows what we do. Surprisingly, almost no one does. I guess that's good from a standpoint of we're the Secret Service to play on that word, but at the end of the day, the reality is our organization was formed in 1865 to combat counterfeiting and to stabilize the United States financial infrastructure. And we've been doing that since then. So well over 150 years, that's actually the origins of the Secret Service, and we still have primary jurisdiction in the world of protecting the nation's financial infrastructure. It's concurrent as well, of course, with the FBI and other DHS organizations, but that's why we do this, and we have a rich history of doing this, which is why I'm even here.
Yeah, well, that's great, and we thank you for protecting the financial institutes, interests of the America, and for also all the work that the Secret Service has done in that space as well. So a couple questions to get started, and then we'll kind of work through some additional topics, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. But starting off is how for you has the cybersecurity landscape evolved over the last decade, and what are the more pressing challenges that individuals face today?
Yeah, I think it's really a loaded question. I think you and everybody in private industry probably is aware as much as I, if not more than I. I mean, I see a lot on the government side, of course, with my history and just background, certainly in private industry. But it really is, to me, the driving issues we're facing as a country are the nation state issues going on. There are significant attacks, as most of us know. I know you know, and the people who work in the world of cybersecurity, these issues are exponential in the form of nation states forming together to attack the United States. The big four, I bring them up all the time. Everybody knows it's Russia, it's China, it's Iran, it's North Korea. These countries are very well educated. They're very good in cyber crime. They're very organized. They are attacking the nation's financial infrastructure more so than, or I should say, not as much as just the country at large. Our companies, our institutions, our defense contractors, of course, the government, all of us are under attack in this country by these foreign countries. And we'll get a little bit later, I think, into, again, Secret Service and protecting the nation's financial infrastructure, because at the end of the day, what are they after? And they're after money, right? That's what everybody's after. That's what all the criminals are after anyway. And this country has a lot of money. We'll talk a little bit about that later too, but that really is the predominant forces of evil, if you will, that are attacking our country.
You know, that's a great segue into a topic that's come up more often in some of the investigations that we do here at BlackCloak is kind of attribution, right? So in cybersecurity, especially in forensics investigation, oftentimes victims and clients will ask for attribution. Who did this? Who's behind this? And even at the government level and the federal level and the nation state level is, how does one determine, or is it even possible, if this is a financial motivated group like FinCEN, or an APT group like APT 28? How do you make that determination, or do you even bother with it?
Well, we do. Obviously, I think that the government is endlessly looking for the bad guys, and we're trying to put a stop to it, trying to arrest people. At the end of the day, that was always our goal. I think a lot of it has shifted to a defense posture because we're not going to get them while they're always overseas, and I say always overseas. But that investigation is going to pursue heavily into who did this, and as you all know, it's difficult to determine that. Anonymizers are everywhere. You can't really tell what IP that is. Is it actually at that location? I think there's a lot of technology that's helping these days. Geolocate, GPS signals that are we now have the ability to put it in the internet and find actually where those IPs are. So a lot of that data drives what we know to be fact and not just conjecture or an IP block, let's say in the Eastern European area. We can usually narrow that down to more specific information now, and it's obviously of great value to all of us to know where those attacks are coming from, and that truly is the goal of all law enforcement.
Got it. One of the things that I'm starting to see more of is what we refer to as misattribution, where taking tool sets from other adversaries and using those tool sets to execute your attacks with the hope that those will be traced back to a different adversary. So, misattribution, both in the traditional cyber sense from a cyber attack and cyber weapons perspective, but also what we're starting to see a little bit more of is even in open source intelligence, right? So, a lot of financial institutions are using OSINT, as well as other organizations, from both a protective aspect, but also from an investigation aspect. And you can start to, what we're seeing is what I call poisoning, right? OSINT poisoning. It's an intentional misattribution where we're pointing the attackers and the investigators to different attackers. So it's definitely interesting as well. So, from your experience, what are some of the more concerning personal cybersecurity issues facing the financial sector should be wary of?
Yeah, I think, and maybe we can get into those, the conversation. I know we've talked about it before, some of the most recent crime issues going on, but it's almost a joke to say ID theft. So, every hack we read about and hear about every week involves the theft of whatever it is, 100,000 to 1 million records. And so all these records contain all of our data. I joke that if you don't think your ID information has been stolen yet, then that's a bit naive. I think everybody's personally identifiable information has been stolen at one point or another. Whether it's correlated together well or not at this point, you will know at some point. It's a very simple recommendation, but I do recommend to everybody to have some type of monitoring going on, not only on your computers and your devices, but on your credit bureaus, of course. And that's just a simple baby step 101. Everyone should be monitoring their credit because, again, the bad guys are after our bank accounts and they're after our identities, especially if you have a high credit rating. So we know that's in fact what they're after, and they have been successful over and over again. I think we all know of the black sites out there that list all of our data. Not even, the ransomware attacks are exponential. They're daily in the news. And what happens is they get all that data, and then whether you pay the ransom or not, a lot of times they're posting it on the black sites and it's for sale anyway. So really a good defense to that is to just monitor your information and know that when someone starts to use it or tries to use it, you get notified and you can stop that usually pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a great point. When a lot of the major CRAs have been compromised, and then your KYC information is already out there, like what car did you drive in 1988? That's all on your credit report. So a lot of the KYC questions that you'll get asked to open up a line of credit are already known. They're already been exposed, or even can be purchased for a $50 credit report. So monitoring your credit, putting freezes and locks and fraud alerts in place is important to know whenever your credit gets hit, because the KYC questions are often bypassed. So that's a very good point. So that's also a good segue into a topic we were talking about yesterday, with a little bit more of a kind of the responsibilities of financial institutions. Can you talk a little bit about that story? We mentioned, obviously anonymized, it happened to an individual, and talk about maybe how the financial institution was involved in that.
Yeah, of course. So, which is, I guess, a lot of the subject of our conversation today are financial institutions. What is their obligation? What should they be doing? How are they being attacked? And a lot of times, and the financial institutions, I think, can speak on that directly of themselves, because they're under attack every day. And I have to say, some of the best cybersecurity I've ever seen in my life exist in the financial world. The very large financial institutions of the United States are incredibly well secured from a cyber standpoint. Not to say that they can't be breached, but they are pretty secure. The bad guys know that, so they go around them and try to use all of us individuals to get in. And so a big thing we Daniel and I were just talking about recently was these romance scams. I know with my federal law enforcement partners still here in the Dallas area, these are very prevalent, almost on a weekly basis, even in this area, that the feds are getting calls on these cases, and they've upped their game a bit. If you don't know what that is, it's usually older men and women are approached by pretty unsavory people, and we know now it's very much organized groups internationally that are doing this. The newest twist, if you will, is that they do have operatives around the United States, and they put them on the ground. A case that I'm very familiar with recently, an older gentleman who drives a very nice car back and forth, perhaps to a location that he visits frequently, he was cased by the organization. He was watched closely as far as his actions coming and going. They sent in a very attractive young woman to make contact with this individual. They started having text conversations moving forward, and he never saw her again after the first day. So of course, that's the MO, is that once the contact has been made, that's handed off to another very organized group that has that same phone number, and they start corresponding with this individual, still proposing to be her. This went on for a long time, a year actually. It went on for 8 months. The back and forth conversations via text and cell phone, some unsavory pictures, pornographic pictures are sent back and forth to get the man further linked in. When he requests meetings multiple times, they never happen. So then eventually it leads to the woman, oh, I'm sick, or I have an issue, I need help with money. And after 8 months of building their trust, he says, sure, I can send you money. In this one case, he ended up sending over $250,000 over a period of about 4 months. And it started small and then got larger to a point where the bank noticed it. And I would applaud the bank that they did their job as they should. They should know their customer. And so they called the individual and told him that you're sending money to accounts that are known to be suspicious and in organized crime. And he responded by actually not so nice to his banker and said, mind your own business. And he continued to send the money. And after a couple months, he was actually, his banker ended up calling his wife and informing her that, hey, your husband's sending a lot of money to these accounts, and we know they're bad. And they end up locking up his accounts for his own benefit. Of course, the gig was up then. I was called, and a few other people were called, and I brought in federal law enforcement, and they're currently working the case. But all that to say, these are going on all the time, and the victims actually believe the person they're talking to. And in this case, it's the classic case of, no, she's not a bad person. I know her well. I've known her for a year, etc. But we had to explain to him, if you keep sending money, you're now complicit in the crime. So this is just commonplace, and this is going on all the time. Again, the bad guys, the organizations that run this, those bank accounts and those IP addresses all came from overseas, where all of this money went to, immediately converted to crypto, and it's gone. Yeah. So just know that that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, this story is particularly interesting for me, as that's a tactic, the physical component, which, obviously has been in place in multitude of scams and crimes for hundreds of years. But from a romance scam perspective, having the physical component to provide that legitimacy as the initial contact point, I had not heard that before. So that's definitely a level of sophistication and an escalation in tactics that is startling, because oftentimes the advice we give to individuals is, don't believe anyone who contacts you online. If you don't know them, or you don't see them, or you can't physically have a conversation with them, then don't trust it. Well, they've upped that up, and now they're putting players in a space, and obviously targeting and casing wealthy individuals, right? They're not going to do this for a $2,000 payout, but for a six-figure plus payout, they're putting physical players in play. And that's startling, to say the least, and also really lends itself to how much money they're making from these schemes, and how much sophistication they're willing to put into it. And then another component that was interesting to me was in something that we've talked about on the cyberspace with ransomware is, as an institution or an organization who's been ransomed, what is your liability if you pay the ransom? Are you funding, state sponsors of terrorism? Are you on a funding or paying to an OFAC, ban company, or is FinCEN gonna, have a, issue with the, who you're sending the money to, right? Because it's in crypto, it can't be traced, so you don't really know who you're sending it to. And this actually has more of a personal element to it. It's the same risks, but now it's not the same risks that an organization face, but what an individual will face as well. Right. So I thought that was very interesting, both from a high net worth individual and an ultra high net worth individual, but also the financial institutions and the private wealth advisors and the individuals who help them manage their money when they see this happen. It sounds like that this was handled correctly, or the best it could be done in a poor situation, but it's definitely something that I don't think is on a lot of financial institutions' current, risk register, at least from a, not so much from a FinCEN perspective, but more from a, if we see weird stuff happening with our clients, what do we do, right? Or if we see, crypto transfers, are they investing in crypto, or are they, being conned out of their money? So it's definitely something, a new tactic to tackle for sure. And then, one of the aspects that we've discovered as part of doing these romance scam investigations, at least for myself and my team, is there's an element of, reality that these long romance scam cons get brought into from a, building this false reality around an individual that, as you mentioned before, it's almost impossible to break them out of it. And some of them get so locked into it and they tie their identity into it that it becomes a realm of reality that you almost like conspiracy theorist you can't break out of. And it's terrifying as a family member, right? That's going through this, and it's also terrifying as a from a human aspect that they do this to individuals. So yeah, it's definitely a terrible crime, and it definitely has a lasting financial and mental impact on its victims for sure.
Yeah, it is, Daniel. I'll just add a little note to your comment. I know I brushed it quickly when I said, but in this case particular, and not even this one, I know almost every one of these cases. And to back up, there's a group here in Dallas that actually that's all they do are elderly fraud cases like this. And every time when they go to approach the individual who's been victimized, they simply do not believe you, that this is not a bad person. I know them so well. They feel like they know them so well. The bad guys are very, very good at developing that trust with the victim. And so they simply won't believe you. And the sad part is they won't stop sending the money. And it becomes a criminal act. Even most recently, the feds had to virtually threaten this elderly gentleman and say, look, if you continue sending money, you run the risk of being charged yourself because you're funding a criminal enterprise, a known criminal enterprise. So where this money is going are accounts that have already been flagged by FinCEN, and they already know that these are fraudulent accounts. So we have to put a stop to it, and it's sad to see how much they don't believe the government and other investigators in the world of cyber. They just don't believe us, and they want to keep sending money because I guess they don't want to admit to being duped. You feel bad for them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, from my perspective, having to tell someone that the four people that she thinks she's been interacting with are friends, they're all the same person, and it's not somebody in Atlanta. It's actually probably somebody in Nigeria or Eastern Europe or some other overseas country, and it just to see their faces, they kind of realize that they've always had that suspicion in the back of their head, but then to present that reality to them is definitely a shocking event for them as well.
Yeah, correct, exactly.
So kind of pivoting off of that, and another question is, from a corporate and business standpoint, how do individuals and businesses collaborate with law enforcement agencies like the Secret Service, when they suspect or encounter a cybercrime? It's something we talked about a little bit more in a specific story I'll go into on this, but just generally speaking, how can individuals or a family member who suspects this is happening, what can they do, or what can a business do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So individuals, which of course we get the calls frequently. I hate to say it, but you have to shop. You have to shop around. We always advise call your local police first, and a lot of you need a fraud affidavit on file anyway, and local police departments are certainly outfitted to do that for you. So we suggest you start there. As well as move to the feds, the FBI, the Secret Service, Homeland Security, wherever you live. I assure you there's a federal presence that has jurisdiction here, and you should call them, you should report it. Now, in reality, the federal government has so many thousands of these cases going each day. It's very difficult to get their attention unless you've lost a lot of money. Like in this case, it was $250,000. And even then, the U.S. Attorney's Office here is so busy, a lot of times they won't even take that case until you hit $1 million. So these are large cases. They're not always accepted, but you do have to just shop around and try to find an agency that will take your case. The police will have to file a report for you in your local city. So again, start there. And as far as investigating the national and international level, you do need the feds involved, and they're pretty good at doing that.
It's interesting you said $1 million because, working on a number of, business email compromise, BEC investigations, oftentimes the first reaction from a victim in a business is to call the FBI or to involve the FBI or ask us if we should involve the FBI. And, from both myself and peers, it's always been kind of there's like a secret number of when will the FBI get involved? Is it 200,000? Is it 500,000 or is it 1 million? So it's interesting to hear some of those different numbers out there, but it's just a staggering amount of these are occurring, and it's almost the exact same tactic and techniques that it's been for the last decade with social engineering and like getting into the accounts and transferring and using mailbox rules from an email perspective. It's kind of a shame that we're it's Groundhog Day for the 10th year in a row on a lot of these cyber crimes and these financial crimes as well.
That's correct, and it is sad. I mean, I call it minimum equity guidelines at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and it does vary per district. It all hinges on that. At the end of the day, the federal agencies are not going to spend time in investigating a case that they know the local U.S. Attorney's Office will not prosecute for them. So why would they? They're wasting their time investigating something that they know will not be accepted. We have to have that agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office to move forward in investigation. And that's what controls all of this. That's why a lot of times they just can't get any traction from the feds.
And the local agencies don't have the expertise or even the jurisdiction, right, to issue the types of subpoenas or warrants or even really investigate it unless it's somebody who's in the same town as you, which is almost never the case.
That's
so
correct.
Really, it's pretty much the feds or nobody, right?
Right, that's correct. And the locals, they don't have the resources. It's again, there's so many cases happening at the lower levels that they have their plate is full as well. So it's just a daunting task.
Exactly. And and kind of keeping with that topic, one of the things that we investigate here a lot is tech support scams, specifically targeting the elderly. They almost always involve either cryptocurrency or gift cards. And the same tactics that we've seen for many years are still working. It's really a subset of social engineering. It's usually an email or a phone call, or even something that we still see a lot of is, I just bought a printer, I go to install it. Of course, you run into an issue, drivers don't download. You Google, HP Epson printer instructions or support, and a number pops up, and next thing you know, you're given AnyDesk access or TeamViewer access to a call center, and they're charging you $4.99 to put software on your computer and taking over your computer. And it's the same exact social engineering tactics that are working today that were working 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And one of the things that we have to advise our clients on is, never give remote access to your computer. There's very few technology companies that will remote in, and if they do, they usually use custom tools. They're not going to use the more common publicly ones that are available. And what's interesting is one of the more common tools that's been used is AnyDesk, similar to TeamViewer. And I've worked with the AnyDesk team and their fraud team, and they've actually spun up a fraud team to work and get the codes that are used taken down when these remote access sessions are set up from the fraudsters. And they have a unique relationship with some of the more famous what are called scam baiters that are out there. And for people who don't know what a scam baiter is, it's basically an online persona. A lot of times these guys are on YouTube, and they will put out videos of them, pretending to be a victim, so they can learn the tactics of the scam caller, specifically in the tech support and online romance scam realm. And their goal is to keep them on as long as possible, but to also gather information about the scammers, right? To get that AnyDesk number, or to get other numbers, or get bank account numbers and things like that. It's kind of devolved into almost a vigilante realm. And there's obviously some gray area around what's legal and what's not, especially some of them that do kind of hacking back, right? But one of the things, and this might be a good question for the audience from a financial institution perspective, is they often come across mule accounts and mule bank accounts. And they've even asked me, we want to report these, who do we report them to? So, getting, from a who we contact and who we report things to from, the law enforcement perspective, but also if we know it's a, BOA account or a Chase account or, a different bank, how and who can individuals report known fraudulent checking account numbers to? Even in the BC investigation phase, we'll often see the wire instructions that are intercepted and they change the accounts. We'll have that information. And, there's obviously certain reporting channels you can use from law enforcement perspective, but also contacting the bank. So it's definitely interesting, both from a gathering the data, gathering the information about who's committing these crimes, but also there's sprung up a vigilante component of it. And I'm actually curious, David, to hear more of your thoughts on the vigilantism component of it. Is when there's a gap, I guess, in some of the lower cost scams, like the $5,000 to $50,000 scams that aren't going to be investigated at the federal level, and no one's really filling in. It seems that vigilantes have stepped in some cases.
I think they have. Actually, I know they have. Can't say good things about that. Obviously, we don't encourage that in law enforcement. We don't at all. Does it exist? Absolutely. We may sit back and silently laugh when things like that are going on, because sometimes we like to see the good guys battling the bad guys in a nefarious way, even. But the official position of the government is especially like with ransomware and things, we don't pay a ransom. You don't participate in a crime. On the even on the national and international level, hacking is a crime. Hacking is still a crime. And so do we encourage our government to hack and commit crimes internationally? And I think there's a balance there. I think we would all be a little naive to think that the government is not participating in some advanced hacking on other countries and other organizations. But at the end of the day, we have to be very careful in doing that, because obviously it just escalates the war. As we attack certain countries, they're going to reciprocate even more so, and it's back and forth. When we started our task force in 2003 here in Dallas, and that was a long time ago, it was very much prohibited and frowned upon, but we all knew that was going on. I think it's in the open now, like the Stuxnet worm that got out in Iran. That was pretty much an Israel and the United States joint venture to try to launch a firing shot over the bow, if you will, or a warning shot over the bow, because that was dangerous. That was 1 million lines of code that got out, and it's now out, and people have used it for bad reasons again. So I think all of that going on does nothing but perpetuate the problem. Although I realize it's going to happen, it's going to continue to happen. But we'll probably get to some point where we're going to talk about AI a little bit, and that's even further accelerating the bad stuff that's out there, because AI can take that and manipulate it even quicker than the best programmers can. There's a lot. But for what you said about reporting, I want to throw out, of course, to the folks that are listening, just to make sure you're aware of CISA, the Critical Infrastructure and Security Agency. I can't applaud them enough. New legislation just came out beginning in 2025 that all hacks public entities as well as private companies have to be reported to CISA. And I think that's actually a good move, just so we can get more of a central location to report all this, and hopefully get that information back out to the public so it can be used for the benefit of all cybersecurity.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's good to see. And I've talked with some of the people working at CISA, and I know they're making a big effort to really try to tackle this at a macro level and work at getting even the smaller crimes tackled, in both from an education perspective and a defense perspective, but then also investigating. And that's one of the things that we do recommend is if you any type of hack that you've experienced or social engineering or scam is to at the very least report it to IEC3, right? And go on the website and file it out. And they may not do individual investigations for each one, but you can collect all this data and you can start to tell a story. And you may end up with a break in the case, so to speak, from targeting these larger groups with this data. So very good point.
Correct, exactly. Yep. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. So I think you made a comment about AI, so that's a good transition here. And then I think we'll talk a little bit about this, and then we'll take some questions. But talk to me a little bit about what, from your take, how's AI changing the landscape, and what do you see, for cybersecurity and these types of crimes evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think even in our discussion before, we didn't talk about that, but I'm glad you're going to allow a few minutes. We could talk about that forever, of course, but I have
We'll time box it into to 5-ish minutes.
I will. Yeah, and then the money aspect, I want to throw out real quickly, and I made a note to make sure I don't forget to say this, and that the United States has over $40 trillion in retirement accounts right now. There's a lot of talk in the world about our economy. Moody's downgrading the U.S. debt grade, and of course, I'm not a fan of our debt at the level that it is. We need to get that under control. But at the end of the day, we're still the most profitable, financial, stable country in the world, bar none. And so thus is why we're the target. Everybody in the world targets the United States, not our allies, but obviously all the enemies. And that is why, if you just look at the retirement accounts, like we talked about the romance scams out there, that's why they're targeting them so heavily, because all of these old people have literally trillions and trillions of dollars in their retirement accounts, and the bad guys want them. So that's why they're hitting the United States so hard, especially our retirees. Just had to throw that out there. On the AI front, there's no doubt that our adversaries on the very big picture of the world, communism wants to collapse democracies, and it is my strong conjecture in criminal justice background that says they have always wanted to collapse us from within. And so how they're doing that now, it's always been the common thought that they want to do that by infiltrating our government, trying to take over certain positions, even all the way up to the presidency, and making our country turn into a communist nation. But in fact, what they're doing is dividing us from within, and they are using AI to do that. And so they're just filling the internet, all data sets out there that's possibly available that AI will access for you and me, is being pulled from data that's not necessarily factual. In fact, a lot of it is not factual. So what I see on the very negative front, and there's a lot of good about AI, but on the very negative front, it is pulling all of this bad data and then is feeding it to divide our country even more than it's ever been. It's factual now that our country is at a huge divide. We've always had disagreements in this country, but it's larger than ever now. And AI is driving it. I do know that. We all click on articles every time we're on the internet, and our personal little AI driver on our computer is feeding us articles that it thinks is of interest to us. And so that AI algorithm, as you know, and most cybersecurity people know, it's designed to know you better than you know you, and it knows what you want to read. And so again, if you tend to be right or left, that's the articles that you're going to get fed to you by the AI machine that's driving that. So I just exercise caution in everything we read online and even see, as we know, deepfake videos, even photos online, they're not real. Many of them are not real. They're just fake. So that's the bad side of AI, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree. As someone who's been a consumer of social media and specifically sites like Reddit and Twitter, they've been a great source of open source intelligence and kind of early warning radar for POCs that are going to come out and exploits and 0 days that have come out. I've definitely seen a huge shift in what you can tell as someone that's in the know is in AI generated comments or just replies that you can, are created to, for one, generate additional, followers for these accounts to bring them more reputation, but also to drive a wedge in between a topic as well. And then I've seen a lot of this on Twitter and really noticed it, with the war in Ukraine and more recently with what happened in Israel on October 7th. It definitely is a threat, and it's an interesting kind of political, not to get into politics here, but it's a political take from a we've kind of weaponized our own technology against us, right? So we've given foreign adversaries, since World War II, we've been protected by the big oceans on either side of us, and we created this thing called the internet, which has got tons of benefits, and it's the future of the world. But it's also given our adversaries the ability to not need to launch aircraft or missiles or boats. They can just come in through the fiber and attack us. And to your point earlier about the hacking back, I think I read in Countdown to Zero Day about the Stuxnet worm from Ken Zetter was, hacking back potentially is the worst for the United States because we're the most technologically dependent nation and the most to lose, right? So there's definitely whole topics we could go down on that path, but we'll try to keep it on topic here as well. So, but yeah, from an AI perspective, I even say, AI's been around for a while. ChatGPT really brought it out into the world, and in 50 years, they're going to do studies on the marketing genius of how they rolled that out. But the common understanding and how the large language modules really brought ChatGPT to the masses is pretty amazing. But we've already seen it. We've seen deepfake audio created to do the standard kind of, hey, mom, dad, family member, I'm in Mexico and I'm in jail and I need a $5,000 Western Union to get me out, right, in their voice. So we've seen it already. It's going to get more prevalent. There's a couple tactics and techniques you can use and advise your friends and family. Things like, having a safe word, family safe word that's, kept in a vault or a password manager, or even just a brief tidbit about an event or a vacation that you took 10 years ago. Some kind of challenge and response phrase to avoid that one specific scenario. But both on the offense and the defensive side, AI is going to completely change the landscape for not just cybersecurity, but for everything in technology. But specifically for cybersecurity, it's going to give the adversaries phenomenal content generation capabilities, as you mentioned, but also it's going to lower the bar for exploitations, right? So finding 0 days, exploiting 0 days, writing POCs. I've actually seen some demos of advanced ChatGPT-like tools write exploit code and then be able to execute it. So there's a lot on the front for that.
Very good point, sir.
So I think a couple more questions, and then I think let me do a time check. So I think we're about 15 out. So why don't I close with these, and then we'll take some questions from the audience if we have any. I don't know. Do we want to? Well, yeah. So I guess if you have questions, you can put them into the question box and go to webinar. We're happy to answer them if you have anything there.
Comments. Always look forward to feedback and comments. People agree or disagree. Always like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I guess, do you have any resources or strategies that can help in understanding and recognizing, criminal activities leading to monetary losses? I know it's kind of a general question, but from an individual, specifically focused on the financial stuff that you're facing, what are some strategies you take to say this looks fake, this looks real?
Yeah, and you know what? I hate that question. I can't believe you brought it up here at the end. I don't have I really don't have an answer. There are a number of companies, Daniel. I wanted to ask you that question. I mean, there are a number of companies out there that are trying to find something to determine, is this real, is it not, kind of thing, especially with AI-driven information that's out there, and specifically to videos and audios. I think that's and photos. I think those they can start to determine what's fake. But as far as information out there, you know, I spend most of my quote unquote semi-retired life reading intel and reading sources of information. And I got caught reading a general out of the UK and talked about drone technology and how it reversed on itself and attacked. And it wasn't true. None of it was true.
Mhm.
So you just have to drive in further. You have to re-Google, re-look at information, check various different sources of information. But you know, most people are not going to do that, right? At the end of the day, they're just going to read whatever they're going to read and take it for face value. That's what's concerning. I do it too. I just don't know what the answer is. I really don't. Maybe you do, Daniel. Please
Well,
ask.
yeah, and I apologize. I context switched on you. It was more of a general question, maybe not just focused on AI, but specifically, I could talk about some of the technical things and some of the things both individuals can do and even companies can do to protect, their key access employees. But just more speaking from a financial component, right? Like obviously, someone comes knocking on your door and wants to sell you used steaks, right? That's gonna that should give away some red flags. But red flags in the physical realm, that you would say to watch out for from a personal cyber or personal financial risks and threats.
Yeah, and those are such the basic things of I would hope we all know by now. And I go back to the monitoring.
Hmm.
Like your company, I'm not trying to sell your company, and for the record, your group's not paying me or anything to be here. I'm just happy to be here because I preach this stuff all the time. But we need monitoring like that to happen on everyone. I know it's expensive and they can't always afford that, but you need to just watch your systems and what you're using online and make sure they're secured. You know, the patches, the updates, all the simple things. I would hope all computers and PDAs and all of our personal devices these days are protected as a default out of the box. But then further, just to sign up with a monitoring company somewhere, at least at the bureaus, at the credit bureaus, to watch your credit. Every time your social security number gets hit online, you should be notified, and that's easily done. Again, that's the positive of AI. It's out there searching almost every site imaginable looking for your social security number, and that's the key one, is your social security number. And if it pops up, you're going to be notified and you can shut that down quickly. So as protecting your financial interest and assets, that's what I strongly encourage people to do. Of course, I don't ever log into any of my financial institutions unless I'm on my home network, period. When I'm traveling, I don't access my financial institutions at all. It's just too easy to be compromised on the road. If you're
Yeah.
on, hopefully everybody at home has changed their SSID and their passwords on their routers, and that makes them pretty secure, as you know.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
just basics.
Yeah, well, no, those are some great points. And on the traveling point, one of the questions we often get asked is, we're going to XYZ country, either personal, the CEO is going, or the CEO's family's going, or they're having a company retreat, and they want to know, what should we do? Should we bring a burner phone? Should I bring my actual iPhone? And it depends, right? So it depends
Yeah,
on where you're going. And
right.
one of the things that I recommend is a burner phone is a hassle in a lot of ways, right? What you can do is a lot of times, or what we've seen is, someone will be at a bar or be at a restaurant, they'll be at a hotel, and they may get slipped at some kind of drug, or put in some type of situation where the bad guys will have their phone and be able to unlock your phone. So what I recommend is if you don't want to go the whole burner phone route, is remove those apps, remove Coinbase, remove Bank of America, remove all your financial apps and any app that has anything to do with finances from your phone. So if your phone does get compromised, they're going to look to see what's there. They're not going to see Coinbase and whatever cryptocurrency you have, right? So are you going to need Coinbase while you're on vacation for a week? Maybe, maybe not, but you can always reinstall it when you get back, right?
Right.
So that's one strategy, obviously. And then, just in general is my own internal vigilant strategy is everything's a scam until it's not, right? And it's unfortunately a sad state of affairs. But when it comes to online, if it doesn't pass the this isn't a scam filter in my head, then the red flags are there, to look out for it. And then if you don't feel like you have the skill set to do it yourself, you got to ask somebody, right? So, there's plenty of ways to do this. There's services you can sign up for. There's Googling and things like that. But always be vigilant. Look at the red flags, and even the ones that are real, that look very real. If it is real and you miss it, it's maybe not the end of the world, right? So a lot of times the social engineering scammers, their goal is to put a sense of urgency on you. So anything that's putting a sense of urgency on you should be, looked at with an extra filter through a different lens as well. So great. So I don't see any questions in here yet, and I hope I'm doing it right because I don't see them in the questions box. So I don't know if that's where they should show up or not. But I guess
Do you want me to ask you those questions?
Yeah, are they there?
Escalate.
Because I don't. You do? I don't see them.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead.
If you go to questions box. Sure. Okay. So the first one is, given the origins of the Secret Service and the seemingly unstoppable of CBDC, isn't there a somewhat obvious bridge in a cybersecurity context?
CBCD bridge, explain that if we could. Not sure they're still out there.
Okay,
Yeah,
so Thomas, if you're still on, please and provide some more context, and we'll just move on to the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's a digital currency question.
Okay, with
Well, you can go to
the advent, sure, with the advent of malicious code being able to be written by AI, do you foresee a probability of a huge uptick of cyber attacks?
I can take that one. So absolutely. As I was talking before, I've actually seen ChatGPT derivatives write exploit code for 0 days and find 0 days. Scan code. You can actually take source code from GitHub, type it into ChatGPT, say, are there any vulnerabilities here? And if it finds one, you can say, now write the exploit code for this. So not only is it making the ability to write this stuff easier, it's lowering the bar. Most people have probably heard the term, script kiddies or kind of noobs when it comes to hacking. They would just run a tool that somebody else wrote. Well, this is significantly lowering the bar for writing advanced exploit code for 0 days or finding 0 days. So you're going to see a much wider swath of individuals out there exploiting software and exploiting vulnerabilities with AI.
Yeah, too. I will add, Daniel, that I have a genius friend who has a couple doctorates in cyber security and investigations, and he was saying he got his team together and they used ChatGPT to write code for them. And he asked ChatGPT, write us code for blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what it was. It was way over my head. It spit out hundreds of lines of code, and he and his team went through every line of that code, and it was completely accurate, which I found amazing.
Yeah,
So just throw that out there. Yeah, to answer the question, it's going to perpetuate the situation, no doubt.
a lot of the code I see it right is 90% perfect. In a few years, it's going to be 100, and it's going to be better eventually in some aspects. It's going to replace software engineers? Absolutely not. It's going to make their jobs potentially easier and better, but the code it can write today is pretty impressive. So.
Okay, next question is, Venmo, a Chase product, is a means of sending digital payments to another account. Can monitoring be placed on Venmo and the restrictions be placed by the bank on the amounts transferred to another account?
Yeah, absolutely. It is up to the bank. They're the ones who place the restrictions on how much comes in and out of their particular bank. It's not done by Venmo, it's done by the banks. That answers that question.
Yeah, and I think that was like, can the bank do the monitoring versus an individual? But if you did meet individual, you can obviously put email alerts and push notifications in place to get anytime money's transferred from Venmo or your Venmo account, you can get a notification or alert about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just a box click at your bank too to notify you every time one comes in or goes out.
Okay, we'll take one final question. Do you guys think there will be a future where cybersecurity will become a prerequisite in order for the next generation to graduate high school?
That is a great question. In fact, I've actually seen arguments made that to be on the internet, you should have an internet driver's license, right? Or there should be some skill set level that's required to operate a computer. I think that in theory, that is, can sound good in some aspects, but obviously there's a whole other problem. There's all other issues with it. But I believe that as, typing was a prerequisite, in the 60s and 70s, and then it became computers in the 90s and early 2000s. I think that as those computer classes and what used to be just Microsoft Office and how to turn on a computer and how to run some super basic commands, I think that cybersecurity will become a more core dependency. Maybe not at the high school level, but definitely at the more college level, especially for programming and software engineering. But I'd like to see it all the way down at the high school level. I think that both cybersecurity risks and learning those skill sets at that age is important from a hacking perspective, but even more so to protect yourself from social engineering and sextortion. I've dealt with a number of sextortion victims that were right out of high school, very young, and they just didn't have a clue, right? So I think the importance of learning what to share, what not to share, what to text, what not to text is really important.
I couldn't agree more, Daniel, and thanks to the person who asked that question and set up that great ending, I think, because it needs to be pushed down to the high school level. As you just said, demonstrated, that's where it's happening, and that's where a lot of the targets are, very young and very old. But yeah, we need to educate our young folks for sure. Very good.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate all the questions. Those were great questions. And thank you, David, for coming on. It was a pleasure speaking to you today, and I appreciate everyone for joining. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Take care.